Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Maureen. I'm a physician life coach. I'm board certified pediatrician, board certified allergist, immunologist. But the most important job that I have that I love dearly is being a mom. Um, I have a website, MaureenMichelleMD.com. Michelle spelt with one L, which is where your audience can find me. But just kind of a little bit about myself and why I'm here talking to you. So I, when I was a kid, had two very important goals, a goal to be a mom and a goal to be a doctor. I was very lucky and got to accomplish both of those goals. When I was in my pediatric residency, my daughter, who was 6 months old at the time, my second child, was diagnosed with pediatric neuroblastoma, a type of pediatric cancer. Um, my world stopped at that time. I became super overwhelmed. It was very challenging to be a physician faced with a very serious illness in your kid, because I knew what it was going to be like to get her treated for this. I don't know if I did the best for myself during those times, but as time went on, life got a little bit better. Um, Never kind of went back to being perfect to where I wasn't being led by worry or um, having thoughts that something was going to happen to my daughter. Then fast forward to where my daughter was 12. I got to be the physician to diagnose her with type 1 diabetes, another very serious medical condition. It's actually Diabetes Awareness Month this month. Um, and during that time, all of those overwhelming feelings from previously kind of came rushing back. Um, I knew though I didn't want to go back to that like dark place that I had been in before. So really was very intentional about how to make sure that my life wasn't driven by worry and overwhelm and stress around my daughter's health issues. Um, Got very into the coaching world, which I initially got there for me and to help me, but became a certified life coach to help in my role as a physician because I helped mentor other physicians. The I now am able to use my challenges kind of as a gift to be able to help other families who have gone through a similar journey as me.
Perfect. I appreciate you sharing. I know for me, Maureen, and I'll equally share, is that sometimes it's difficult to understand the struggles that you go through and to use that to maybe benefit your life. So, for example, we can fall on hard times, right? Or we can have a child that is struggling, or we can say, Lord, I just can't figure this out, right?
For sure.
But sometimes that pushes us in a direction where we could be a beacon for hope for other people. And it shows us, it's like we have a mirror in front of us. It shows us, hey, Terrain, Maureen, you are stronger than you thought you can be. You're more resilient than you can be. So take us through some of the emotions that you were experiencing when you're going through this. What did you experience and how did you ultimately overcome it for yourself so you can be there for your family in a way that perhaps they needed you to be?
Right. And, just to comment on something that you just said, like we get faced with challenges every single day. Some are smaller than others, but life is constantly challenging us. And, in looking at a challenge, you have a choice. You can either like crumble in a ball and let the challenge kind of lead you, or you can kind of change that challenge into a gift, whether that be, the perspective that life is teaching you something, and so you're gaining the gift of knowledge, or that life is allowing you to be able to really empower yourself so that you can help others. But there's always a gift in challenges. Sometimes you have to look for it, but it's always there. And so I would encourage folks to really think about that, not just if they're facing challenges with their children, but anytime, financial challenges or work challenges, it's always we can turn it into a gift. Though, when my daughter was diagnosed with cancer as an infant, I'm not sure I turned it into a gift at that point in time in my life. I was really, like I said, overwhelmed. And, I kind of explain it like when we take on this journey of life, imagine that you're driving a car on this journey. Well, at that point in time in my life, that the person driving the car was worry, overwhelmed, stress. Like I was reactionary rather than being proactive and helping myself. Um, it is really learning how to kind of take over the driver's seat, because I mean, let's face it, like my daughter still has diabetes. That hasn't gone away. So I'm still allowed to have concerns about her, but it doesn't need to be in the driver's seat of the car. And that's really what I have learned throughout my years of being a mom and, being a doctor too, being able to really uh, advocate for my daughter and learn how to teach my patients how to advocate for themselves or for their children has also been a real gift in all of this.
Was there a time when you're going through all of that where you felt alone? If so, how did you cope with it?
Oh, for sure. Like all the time. And it's uh, like I said at the beginning when she was young, I didn't cope with it well. And so that feeling of being isolated and alone is so prominent. And and I think some of us, when faced with a challenge that we need help with, we get more isolated because we have this belief, at least I did, that if I asked for help during that time, that meant I was failing as a mom. And being a mom was this huge goal that I had since I was a little kid, and there was no way I was going to fail at being a mom. So there was no way I was going to ask for help. And all that did was create more isolation and more being alone. Um, Later, when she got diabetes and I went on this more kind of personal growth journey to figure out how not to go back to this kind of dark place that I was years earlier, that I learned and realized like asking for help, that's not being weak or failing. It means you're actually courageous and strong and can evaluate where your strengths are and where somebody else can help you. So certainly being involved in support groups helps with that because you identify with people who are going through the same kind of struggles as you. So it gets easier to ask for help. And then having that practice can allow you to ask for help in other scenarios.
There's a time where both of my parents got sick, and it made me appreciate many things in life that I always felt were important, but maybe I wasn't dedicated enough time to them. And before they got sick, I had a very strict rule that would dictate what was important to me. So it was outside of material things, right? Like the car, the house, the things of that nature, women. Like that was the things that you just push to the side. And then when I was put in as I felt that I was becoming more wise and definitely more mature, I began to understand that having the right people around you is truly a blessing. And that's something that you can't put a price on. And as I grew from that and as I understood that, that's when I started to behave differently, navigate my life differently. Sometimes I felt like I was even walking differently, Maureen. It was like
Yeah.
a crazy, crazy transformation. So when you're looking back now, there's some time has passed. What are some of the differences that you see in yourself when you compare yourself today versus then?
Oh, I am I am such a different person. And the it would be hard, I think, for anybody to experience all the things in life and look back and think of themselves as the same person. That I, they're going to be different in some way. Some folks may look back and think, you know what, I was a better person back then than I am now. And that's what I was saying about, you have a choice when you're facing challenges. Like, is it going to break you down or is it going to make you stronger? And I have been very lucky and intentional about having it make me stronger. So, like, I'm much wiser than I was before. I understand more about advocating for someone, and even advocating for myself. I personally am a people pleaser, have always been a people pleaser. So really dislike confrontation. And I always thought of advocating for myself or somebody else as I'm trying to start an argument with someone. And it's learning and realizing that no, advocating just means making sure that you're voicing what you think is right. Um, and if somebody disagrees, it doesn't mean that a disagreement is bad. It means that's an opportunity to learn a new perspective and understanding how to be curious with an argument is really a very beneficial thing with adv advocacy. And so learning things like that, learning how to ask for help, like I said before, is I'm very good at asking for help now compared to previously. Um, and I would also say, you talked about when your parents were sick and that you then had kind of realized about um, uh, kind of what to be grateful for in life. And for sure, like I have really changed the way that I live every single day and focus a lot on gratitude. Because it helps someone really shift their mind. I wake up every single morning and write down three very specific things that I'm grateful for every morning. And it's easy to find three things that you're grateful for. And when you start doing that, you start looking for things that you're grateful for in throughout your day. So it really changes how you approach life.
That's a beautiful way to put it because there's some people that they find that it's easier to be negative about themselves than it is to find something that they're grateful for. So they may say something along the lines, Maureen, I've had a terrible day. My boss is a monster of a man. And this woman, she just continues to nag and nag and nag and nag and nag. But when we do the exercise and we ask ourselves, okay, say three things that you're grateful for, or better yet, take it a step further. Give me three things that you are happy with about yourself, right? Then it's like, okay, let me think about this. Let me put pen to pad. Let me put my thoughts onto paper. And you begin to understand that it takes more thought. It takes more understanding to be grateful, as you mentioned, to be positive, as you mentioned. And when you're helping people to understand this, and you mentioned a beautiful thing when you shared the four C's, and we touched on that in the green
Yeah.
room in our very exclusive and VIP conversation, I may add. So take us through the four C's and how that will help people in their life when you talk about the consciousness, the curiosity, the commitment, and the courage.
Yeah, so the this is what I teach is kind of the foundation of being resilient. And, being resilient really means that you're able to kind of overcome these challenges and figure out how to make them a gift. And so the very first thing anytime we're faced with a challenge is to really get in touch with your consciousness, meaning your brain constantly has thoughts that it is spewing out to you throughout the day. And you can choose to believe those thoughts or choose not to believe those thoughts. But you have to start being aware of them. So, for example, when my daughter was diagnosed with diabetes, all the thoughts that were running through my head was, this can't be happening again. Why Kylie, my daughter? She's already been through enough. I don't want her to die. And all of these thoughts that run through your head end up creating emotions. And so those emotions, you can imagine from the thoughts that I just spewed out, aren't warm and fuzzy emotions. They're stressful. And so before you can change how you're feeling, you really need to be aware of what your brain is thinking. So consciousness is the very first thing. Curiosity is the next. So understanding, well, why am I thinking that thought? Um, like the example that you gave about like my boss is a moron, right? The it's realizing your brain is thinking that and then getting really curious about it. Like, why do I think he's a moron? And I always teach folks you need to keep asking that question, why? Um, for example, we just said, why is my boss a moron? Well, my boss got mad at me for missing a deadline. Okay, why did you miss a deadline? Well, I miss a deadline because I don't love the project that I'm working on. Why don't you love the project? So keep asking that question, why, because it'll really get to kind of the root of a thought that your brain is continuing to think, that is forcing you to have certain emotions and actions in life. The the next thing though is once you figure out those thoughts, it's then committing to what a thought is that is going to serve you. Meaning, it's the realization that the thought of my boss is a moron is it doesn't help you. Like it makes the workday really long. So it's committing to saying, okay, if my brain says my boss is a moron, then I'm committing to not believing that. And I'm going to find something that I appreciate about my boss in that moment. And so it's really the commitment to pick thoughts that are serving you. And then the final one is courage, which anytime you're trying to change something, whether it be changing a diet or changing an exercise routine, it's committing to it, but then it's having the courage to really stick with it and being, going above and beyond so that that it's going to make your life better. And it's the same way when we're practicing resilience and really becoming aware of what our brain is telling us and how we're going to be changing those thoughts to become more strong in dealing with challenges.
Those who are watching on Facebook, YouTube, and my social media, please stay tuned for more incredible interviews like the one we have with my best friend Maureen, and we will be back for more. So stay tuned, everyone.